Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of Receivables Roundtable. Today, I am here with my good friend, Mr. Dennis Barton, who is I'm assuming, the managing attorney with Barton Law Group. Dennis and I have got to know each other over the last year or two at various private parties and ACA events, and he's been just the most gracious host, introducing me to people and making me feel comfortable in a new environment, which is going to lead us into today's topic. How you doing today, Dennis?
Adam, hi. Thanks for having me on. It's really nice to be here.
Absolutely. So from your perspective, like if you could give everybody a little bit of background for anybody that's not familiar with yourself and your experience, and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got to the seat that you're in today.
Sure. I started out in the business world, graduated from IU Business School, and then worked at a couple places and doing human resources. Last one was Anheuser-Busch. So nice big company here, which is what brought me to St. Louis. But the whole time, what I really wanted to do was be a lawyer, because what I found was ultimate decisions were made by lawyers, and I thought, well, I'll just do that. So I went to law school and been a lawyer for almost 20 years. First 10 years was a little bit of different things, different areas, a lot of some collections, some personal injury. About 10 years ago, I'd already opened my own firm, and a processor I had used came to me and said, Dennis, a solo practitioner died, so we need to take over his firm. So I said, oh, what do we do? Oh, he does collections. I said, oh, okay, sure. So I talked to his family, and that's how I got into the world. I just took over. I brought over his cases to my firm. And as sad as his tragedy was, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I expanded my firm, and I love collections. It's so much fun. I originally thought it was just going to be a bunch of small claims cases,
Mhm.
and whatever. That's boring. Then I found out there's something called, I don't know if you guys know about this or not. It's the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. I don't know, whatever. Let's hear what that's all about. Actually, I'd once heard about it, that it was a law that says you can't call people in the middle of the night, which I was half right. I was partially right. That is true. But apparently there's more to it. But anyway, that's kind of what got me to the collection realm. And it's been a good time ever since.
Wow, that is what an interesting entrance, which actually leads us to kind of our discussion topic for today. We had kind of planned on a particular topic, and right before we started on the filming, we were having such an interesting conversation about perspective in the industry and about how various perspectives that you may have from throughout your career can ultimately come together and create a unique individual. So, and I want to hear your story in terms of kind of how family law and some of these other things that you've done, and, defense and collections work, and how those things come together. For me, I've held a lot of different roles throughout this industry, whether it be marketing, compliance, deals, and it gave me a very unique perspective on how things function. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It's just a very unique perspective. So I come at problems differently. And so right before we started filming, Dennis was telling me all about kind of how his perspectives have changed throughout his career and how it's made him a more kind of complete attorney. And so I wanted to I kind of cut the story off and said, let's do this on film, because I really feel like this is a powerful conversation. And there's a lot of us that haven't had a straight A to B kind of career path within this industry. And we end up in all these different places with all these different experiences. And it's really brought a lot of unique individuals together. So Dennis, tell us a little bit about how your perspectives have changed, being a collections attorney, doing defense work, doing all these other types of law. Like, that's got to make you a much more complete attorney. Help me understand what your journey was like.
Sure. I think so. I opened my own firm in November of 2009. And at that point, I had a little bit of commercial collections. I had the owner of a strip mall company, real estate developer. He was my biggest client. And it was enough to keep the lights on, but I had to grow from there to really be successful. I took anything that would come in the door. I took family law, criminal law, real estate, or landlord tenant, collect, whatever. You had a case, you want a will? Yeah, I can write a will. Then I had to go figure out how to write a will. And I write the will. It was a learning experience like none other. It was really interesting, but it does a few different things. First, it teaches you about different types of law, and you can kind of see the theories in those type of laws and see how you can weave them into collections. If you hear an argument, maybe in a family law case that isn't on point, but maybe you use that same theory over here. Say, look, they don't do this in collections; they do it in family law, but it may work here too. From a business perspective, what it does is, man, does it make you a heck of a lot more confident in tackling anything. You were started with a blank slate. You've had to build it from there. So that's pretty exciting. But it also helps you better, deal with people, because you can take different issues, different problems from different perspectives, and you can handle it, and you're able to walk them through their different problems. And the truth of the matter is, as an attorney, here's what they don't say in law school. When you're an attorney, people will come to you with everything. You say you specialize in collections. The owner of your biggest client has a kid who has a speeding ticket, or has a kid who got in a car accident. I need you to help him out with that. Or a kid who needs a will. So what I never realized is that all these things are going to have to come back. Because if I want to truly serve my clients the way I want to, be the guy that they call when they're in trouble or need help, I have to be able to do a lot of different things. And just so those different perspectives and those different experiences that help in that way.
That's really incredible, right? Like that approach of, a lot of lawyers are really specific and like, I work on this. This is what I do. But to be able to have that person that you can call and get assistance from, no matter what the situation is. And I'm sure in some instances you say like, I'll handle this. And in other instances you're like, well, let me plug you in with someone who is, who can handle this particular issue for you.
So my definition of economic success was being able to do that second one, that latter one. You know what? I got a guy. I got a person that can help you out. She's great at this. He can help you out with that. Because handling it all is too taxing. It's too much, and it's not just from an effort standpoint. The law. As we know in the collection field, the law changes a lot. The law doesn't just change in collection; it changes everywhere all the time. And so, if you start spreading yourself out too thin, you can't possibly keep up.
God.
So that's what I had to, kind of decide a path. And a lot, and I was doing a lot of defense work when I decided to just do the collections industry. I was doing both collections in Missouri and Illinois as well as defense nationwide. And I even had to decide a path then. Later on, about a couple of years ago, I decided I have to pick a path. I can't do both. It's just too much. But doing both of those things for as long as I have, the defense and the collections, one helped the other because it added what you call the perspective. When I was doing defense, I knew what it was like to be a collector. I knew what it was like to talk to someone. And more than just talk to someone, I know what it's like to talk to someone, knowing that at any moment you can get sued if you did something right or wrong. Because every collector has every account is an opportunity for business success, but it's also an opportunity to get sued. If anybody can sue, and whether you're right or wrong, people can sue. You've got to defend. And I know what that feels like, which I think helps. And I also know what it feels like to be a small business owner, as a collector especially, and know when somebody's asking you to settle a case or defend a case or spend a bunch of money to defend, spend a bunch of money to settle. I know what that really feels like too, and I know what that could possibly do to my A&O coverage and E&O coverage. So knowing that perspective helps me better serve the client and give better advice because I know the reality. And as sales pitchy as that is, that's not what I meant to make it sound like.
It doesn't sound sales pitchy. It sounds like an approach, right? And that balance between, I was a collections attorney and I was working individual cases in order to collect a debt, and I'm doing defense work. But I think it's pretty, it's somewhat self-apparent in terms of how those things would marry together, because you're right. Every account is an opportunity. It's also a threat, right? And as someone who has written quite a few SWOT analysis for this particular industry, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I mean, there's an opportunity in every account and there's a threat in every account, and it's about how you approach that. And also so many things play into that, right? Like the training and all these other pieces, and hiring the right people, and finding the right opportunities to work individual accounts and how that all comes together. So I'm curious a little bit about like any specific stories of, hey, I was in the courtroom and I was looking at this particular problem as a debt collector, and then my defense came in. Like any war stories that you can kind of share with us from that perspective?
Um, I don't know if I have anything too entertaining off the top of my head, but I would say that just for a lot of times it's rules of evidence. For
Okay.
example, what can come in and can't come out. What can come in and what you can exclude. A lot of them are all different types of law apply them all pretty much the same. So if you have a good experience, let's say in personal injury, you can remember cases that you've had in the past, and that this like getting a contract in, or I guess it's happened in insurance cases before, when the other side will try to bring in insurance documents to try to throw the judge off and say, look, I've had insurance and this should be covering it. And then the judge now has to figure out, okay, what coverage is or isn't. And I've been able to get those excluded, grounds of hearsay, when the other side hasn't presented them well, because on the personal injury side, I was able to bring in some of that information, being able to fight some of those battles. So in that way, the past experience fighting something here helped me, or helping fighting something there helped me fight something here.
Understood. So it's almost like better understanding the rules of the chess game in front of you, and if you understand the rules of the game, it's giving you more capabilities to be strategic in your thought process, and how you're approaching individual problems that are presented before you in a courtroom.
There's an old phrase in the law that says when the law is on your side, use the law. When the facts are on your side, focus on the facts. And, you don't have either. You just bang your fist on the table. And to kind of take that old theory and tweak it a little bit, it's really the rules. There
Mhm.
have been cases that I thought I was going to lose based on the law and the facts, but
Mhm.
I knew the rules better than my opponent. Or for whatever reason, the rules, because the way things shook out, the rules helped me be able to exclude something. Like a rule that says that you can't use a witness if not disclosed after within discovery. Well, if they didn't disclose their witness and they bring the witness that would have secured my client, get that person excluded just by knowing the rules. Um, and so the more you know, the better off you are with the rules. And some of them, they change depending on local rules. Every county's got some different things here and there. Um, sometimes some counties make you talk to the other side before you file any motion, have discovery disputes, and some don't care. And you got to know which, because if you bring a motion to compel discovery or sanction somebody because they didn't produce because they didn't produce what the court told them to produce, and you didn't have your little talk when you were supposed to, then you look like the fool.
Mm.
So sometimes it's about knowing the rules, and the more cases you've been in, which maybe goes to experience as much as anything, the more you know.
Well, experience, but also the broadening of those experiences, right? Because if you've spent 30 years working on exactly the same thing, like, I mean, do you have that same perspective? I know as I've gone through my career, my perspective of being a debt broker, and then, the perspective of being a compliance guy. Well, I understood the rules of the transactions and how those contracts worked, and those types of things, which allowed me to excel at compliance. And now that I've got deals in compliance, as I started working more in kind of the marketing and deal sourcing space, I had some experiences to draw from that were very valuable, because my perspective had changed over time. And now I've got a unique perspective, a unique approach, because someone who's only been doing compliance is not going to look at it the same way that I do, with kind of that compliance in the deal, right? I always talk about, from a compliance standpoint, there's a balance between performance and compliance, right? You always have to find that balance in your risk tolerance within any given organization. And I think it's the same kind of thing. It's just applied from a legal perspective, which is why I thought, the conversation was so interesting in terms of how you've taken these various bits of work and kind of better understood the rules of the game specifically within those jurisdictions where you've spent the most time. I think it's a cool approach, and has made you a very interesting character, which is why every time that we get an opportunity to hang out, we kind of go down these rabbit holes of discussions, and I think it's because we come from I wouldn't say very different perspectives, but we come from different perspectives. You from legal, me more from the deal side, and then how how does that start to come into the mix when some of our other friends are engaged in the discussion as well, in their unique perspectives, whether it be from a training side of the world, or they're actually on the floor managing collectors, or they're buying active deals. So I think, as we've been able to have these conversations over the last year or so, it's been very interesting to kind of learn from you and to see how you view the world from from your seat, right? And that's why I always like to kick off this conversation with, tell us about yourself and how you got to the seat that you're in today, because I think it's important that people understand the perspective of somebody who's talking to them, and what their background was and why they feel the way they feel about things. Otherwise, it's just, hearsay.
If you do the same thing all the time, right? If you do the same thing all the time, it's easy to fall into being a creature of habit.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's good. Habits are good to have. Good habits are beneficial, but it's tough to have habits rule your life when you're in an industry that changes so often. Because if
Mhm.
you have a habit that then doesn't change when the law changes, the procedures change, or good practices change, you're going to be in trouble. And what I found that with older attorneys, that they know some stuff. They got a lot of older collection attorneys is what I'm talking about. They know a lot of tricks of the trade, and what judges are good, what judges are bad. From a compliance standpoint, haven't really, kept up a lot. And so by not keeping up, uh, they can be having some problems. And I don't want to have a Reg F discussion. Everybody's talking about Reg F, but it's from as an example though. A lot of these, I worry about some of these more experienced attorneys. I don't mean from an age standpoint. I just mean it from they've been doing the same thing for a long time. They kind of they thought I'm making all, I'm doing pretty well, and I don't have to worry about, I don't have to worry about it. All right, I've got my thing, my little shtick down. I'm doing great. But what they don't realize is that little shtick of theirs is no longer applicable, and it's no longer complying with the law. And they don't find out until they get themselves and their clients sued.
Yeah.
But if you have a little more broader approach, and you have some different experiences, it forces you to keep up. Like with the defense cases, for example. I've been a collection attorney since 2012. The only reason I got into defense at all is because my clients got sued. Finding an attorney sucks, so Barton, just go do it. So I went and started to defend some things, and then I liked it, so I started doing a little more of that. So then I've got like half my time in defense, half my time in collections.
Mm.
And while that took a lot of my time up, doing the defense part also really helped my collection. I talked earlier about how the collections helped my defense, but the defense helped my collections because they told me what the hell was going on, and I don't know if I'd be as on it, because I had to know what was going on if I was going to do defense. I had to know the most recent cases because those are the ones to which I needed to cite in my brief or argue in front of the judge. But when you're a collection attorney, you don't need to go look at those laws. If something comes up. But oftentimes when something comes up, it's too late because something already came up. The problem existed because you didn't keep up in the first place. And so the defense made me keep up. And so I actually really liked that. And my larger point is that doing different things helps keep you from being not just a creature of habit, but a victim of habit. And it makes you keep up. It
I
makes
like
you
that.
not only have a broader perspective, or a more enriched knowledge of an area in that you focus.
I really like that, Dennis. I think that your perspective is important, and kind of your unique approach to to the problems that are presented to your clients, right? And we all swim in the same ponds, and we're all seeing the same things. And I think that you've taken some interesting approaches, and clearly have been recognized for that, because I see you speaking all the time. I really did enjoy getting to see you at the ACA Ignite conference out there in Las Vegas recently. And I really, I think that your perspective is very interesting. I hope we can kind of have another discussion down the line here and talk a little bit more about it and how these things may come together. In the short term, though, we've kind of run out of time for today. I, again, really enjoyed getting a chance to see you out at ACA and look forward to seeing you again in the near future because it's time for us to catch up over a coffee or something again very soon.
I love it. All right. Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate being here.
Awesome. We'll see you soon.
Take care.